So a lot of y'all know that I have been taking my content more seriously. If you don't know me, my name is Jade Odessa, and I speak on relationships, love, friendships, betrayal, childhood trauma, and an array of topics to help you be who you're meant to be, not what you've been through. So one of the topics that I was going to discuss today is co-parenting. If you don't know my situation, me and my daughter's dad have been broken up for almost 10 years now. Our daughter is 9.5, roughly. We broke up, so we've been broken up for 9 years. We broke up when she was 6 months old. And we broke up due to infidelity on my part. I've spoke about this on live. I've talked about this in depth. I've never hid this. I was very, very young. I was going through postpartum. And essentially, I was a piece of shit who didn't think about anybody's feelings but my own. And we have grown and we have evolved from that. But a lot of people, specifically knowing the circumstances of our, dynamic, are like, how are you guys able to have a healthy co-parenting relationship? Because surely he's bitter and angry. But that's just not the case. I picked my daughter's dad to have a child with because I knew the man that he was. He is not a very hateful man. He is a very caring person. I will say that, I'm sure he's still very bitter and angry in his own ways, but not so much so that they overpower the best interest of our child. He is not so self-absorbed that he feels the need for our daughter's relationship to suffer for things that have nothing to do with her. And so I think it's, number one, in order to co-parent, you need to have some type of understanding with the other parents. I tell everybody, number one and first and foremost, I wasn't able to co-parent with him for a very long time because I was still grieving our relationship. I truly believe that the people that cannot co-parent is because one of those parents is still in love with the other, whether that be your baby dad, whether that be you. And at that particular time, for the first few years of her life, it was me. And it was also him because he is, trying to wrap his head around the things that happened to him. And so it wasn't always easy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all. It wasn't. But what I will say is our want for our daughter's best interest was always first. And if both parents cannot do that, co-parenting will be very difficult. So if one is in love with the other, and two, if they cannot put their child above themselves. Him and I knew before we had our daughter that we wanted to be parents. We wanted to be good parents. We wanted to do things similar to our parents, but different than our parents. So we very much had those deep conversations. And I know now in society, it's really common for people to unexpectedly get pregnant or get pregnant with people they didn't necessarily plan to get pregnant with. But my mother always told me, and something that stuck with me personally, is you can choose your husband, your kids cannot choose their father. So choose wisely. And that really stuck with me. I've always just been very cautious about, the men that I even interact with. If I don't think that I could deal with the child with them, I usually don't mess with them. But again, we have our moments. I've had my moments where there are men that I would rather croak than have their children. So that's not always the case. But if you can go into it, kind of pre-planned, I think it's important to have conversations about, one thing for him and I is we always knew that we wanted to raise our daughter very similarly. We have the same views for the most part on school. We have the same views on our expectations of her and her grades. We have the same expectations on her and if she gets bullied. We have the same expectations if she's the bullier. We have just had those really hard conversations and come up with those scenarios. So we never really have a lot of conflict in our decision making because we're kind of usually on the same page. Not always, but 90% of the time. So I think it's important to also have a child with somebody that has similar views, who wants to raise your children in a similar way, even if you're not together. It definitely comes down to maturity. I was a lot younger than my daughter's dad, so I had some growing to do to be able to maturely have a co-parenting relationship with him that is beneficial to both of us beyond our child. If he wanted to get a girlfriend, I've always supported him in that. I'm not bitter or jealous where I just don't want him to be happy and move on because I have. And I feel like everybody deserves to be loved and have somebody love them. And he is no different. He is great. And if you cannot do that, co-parenting is going to be very hard. Another thing is boundaries. Me and my daughter's dad have boundaries. There is certain shit that I know that I cannot bring to him because he's not going to deal with that shit. Same thing. He knows not to approach me with certain shit. Because it's not, you have to have strong boundaries and not move from those boundaries. People treat you how you allow them to, and him and I both hold ourselves to a very high standard where you're not going to approach me disrespectfully, we are going to have a productive conversation, or I'm going to hang up this phone. Both of us have done that many a times. I don't think you can properly communicate with me. Call me when you can. Or if we're like kind of beefing, because we don't argue in front of our daughter, if we do argue, which again, arguing can be healthy in a healthy way. We do not argue in front of our child. Number one, don't argue in front of your kid. I don't care if you caught your baby dad fucking a bitch on the couch in that moment. Shut it up. If your children are in the room, don't expose your children to that. Your want for your child has to be stronger than your emotions. You have to think very logically as a parent, and as a woman that can be very difficult because we are emotional creatures, but I have had to learn logic. Be flexible and adaptable. Like if your child's father has something to do, if he's an active father and he has something to do, help him out. If I have something to do, he helps me out. We're a team. We both went into this. We both also want lives. Okay? It's very much give or take. Saying you have to be able to do both. Life changes. Things happen. Work schedules change. His schedule might change. I think a lot of times if, your child's father cancels on you, automatically you're on Facebook typing a status about how he's a piece of shit. We need to stop doing that, even if he is a piece of shit. Because if you think that's going to help your dynamic, it's not. And then you may scream, well, I don't want to help our dynamic. Well, then you've just wasted 7 minutes and 11 seconds of your time because you clearly don't want to change for your child. Respect the other person's parenting styles. Like I said, there's a lot of things that we do have in common, but there's some things that we just disagree on. We disagree. When it comes to the hard conversations where we disagree, compromise is important. There has to be some level of compromise. You have to be able to also have empathy for the other person. They are a human being. It is their first time parenting too. It is their first time living too. None of us are prepared for this shit. Nobody. I don't care what age you are never prepared to be a parent the way that you want to plan it to be. It's never going to happen. It just does not happen like that. Be consistent with rules and routines. So it is important for you to be on the same page with what time your child goes to bed at both homes, just because it helps both of your lives easier. If your baby dad wants to bring a girl over, or you, and again, I know a lot of people get weird when I say that. Oh, I don't want no girl around my kid. Again, with your wants being above your children. Why can't other women love your children? Why can your child not receive more love from more people? You need to soul search as to why you feel that way. And these are the hard questions in co-parenting that you have to ask yourself. It's very much holding yourself accountable. A lot of times we have not been able to co-parent because of me and because of him. But I take accountability in the fact that I was toxic. I couldn't hold a productive conversation. I couldn't put my child's feelings above my own in a lot of situations, especially when I was in my early 20s. You wasn't telling me shit. But you have to take accountability. You have to see that sometimes you are the problem. And if your main reason for getting upset isn't the best interest of your child truly, you're not doing it right. What is the harm in another woman loving my child? Answer me that. Now, obviously, you need to make sure this is a good woman. This is a sane woman. This is a woman going places in life. But you have to be open-minded and actually speak to this woman and ask this woman genuine questions with an open mind to receive her answers without judgment. But yeah, that's a little bit about how we've been able to co-parent, some tips on maybe how you could better your co-parenting relationship, some very, very key points into being successful, even in hard times or times of trial, or, if you've done wrong or the other person has done wrong, to be able to rectify yourself for your children and their best interest. We have an amazing co-parenting relationship now. Our daughter is very happy and loved. And if you guys want a part 2, let me know.